990. You know that I believe one of the most important issues in modern times is this increased censorship from official Washington in concert with media. There really can be nothing more significant and more alarming than official Washington silencing those of us with dissenting points of view and working in concert with official media to do it. We've demonstrated for you time and again that they believe they have the corner on the truth, and anybody who shares information that they don't believe is truthful or keeping with what they tell you is the truth, they're willing to threaten and silence it. And we've heard it again and again and again. We've heard it from Rachel Maddow. We've heard it from Jake Tapper. We heard it from Vivek Murthy. Vivek Murthy, who is the Surgeon General, the Bond villain, as I call him. Remember, during the height of COVID, this was the first time I ever really heard it said. It was, I don't know, how old was this, Ed?
This was January of 2022.
All right, so early in 2022, it was the first time I'd ever heard a government official basically warning that anything that contradicted them was misinformation, and the way it was phrased was so clever. You, the American people, have the right to not hear. Follow that? You have the right to not hear misinformation.
So people have the right to make their own decisions, but they also have the right to have accurate information to make that decision with. I know when it comes to how we root out the misinformation in society right now, and give people access to accurate information, we've got to do several things. Number one, we've got to recognize that our technology platforms, whether particularly social media, these have an important role to play. These are the predominant places where we're seeing misinformation spread. These platforms have still not stepped up to do the right thing and do enough, I should say, to reduce the spread of misinformation. But each of us also has a role to play here because we all have platforms. And particularly if you're somebody who has a large following, whether you're an entertainer, a politician, in the media, it's your responsibility, all of our responsibilities, to make sure that we are thoughtful in what we are sharing. This is not just about entertainment. It's not just about garnering clicks. This is about people's lives. And we have seen time and time again that misinformation costs people their lives.
I told you then that was one of the more chilling things you'll ever hear. And I think a lot of people puzzled, why are you pointing out the Surgeon General of all people? Why is that a big deal? Because it's chilling, because he spoke with this ominous, menacing tone of, you have a responsibility to share responsible information. Naturally, I thought to myself, well, what does that mean? Who gets to determine what is responsible? Well, he does, obviously. I set the table with all of that to bring in John Vecchione, Senior Litigation Counsel at the New Civil Liberties Alliance, because he's engaged right now in a legal battle with three individuals versus the Department of Health and Human Services and the Surgeon General over just this issue. Mr. Vecchione, good morning.
Great to be here, Chris. Good morning.
Chilling. Yes, that speech in January 2022 was chilling.
Yeah, but you know what I missed until you played that was our social media. Now, that could mean everybody in America's, but he seemed to mean our, meaning the government's. That's what I took from that I hadn't taken last time I heard it.
Yeah, and they get to determine what is truthful information and responsible information, most of all. They get to decide what it is.
Well, they actually don't, but that's their assertion, and that's darn well what they've tried to do and have succeeded in doing, as in our case. And that's exactly right. And in America, you should be able to say whatever you want. I don't think there's, these caring Stalinists always say that, this is dangerous, or even on that clip you played from Jake Tapper, that something some would say is dangerous. There's nothing more dangerous that you can say that's more dangerous than the government shutting you up.
And so, John, specific to your case, can you tell us kind of the basis of it, where the jumping off point here?
Yes, I will. So I have there were three clients. This was early on. There's been other cases like it afterwards, but this is one of the earlier ones. The Surgeon General had gone to, he put out a request for production to all these social media companies. Where's this bad information coming from, and what are you doing about it, basically? Now, the statute doesn't let him do that. That was just him doing it after making all these threatening statements to them. And what happens, lo and behold, is that after Jen Psaki says these social media companies aren't doing enough. And after the statement of the Surgeon General, all my clients were thrown off Twitter. Mark Changizi, he's a scientist. So Mark Fingers is another guy who used Twitter a lot to get out information, and Dan Coatzen is another one who's out in Colorado, and some of you people, he's married to Jennifer Say, and they wanted schools open, and so all these people were thrown off Twitter for basically saying things that now are incontestably true. That masks aren't stopping the spread, that schools should be open, kids learn better, that sort of thing. So it's not like they're out there saying that Bill Gates is putting microchips in your blood or anything. And now you should be able to say that too, but this is normal discussion about a serious social contagion that needed to be aired out by the American people, and the government was trying to shut it down.
John Vecchione with a senior litigation counsel at the New Civil Liberties Alliance. Let me talk about legally. What legal responsibility have I? So as a talk show host or a scientist or whatever, I'm on Twitter or I'm behind a microphone hosting a show, and I come on and say any fool, unscientific thing I want. Is that legally protected speech, or do I have some sort of legal responsibility to not share, quote, misinformation? Where does that fall?
I would say this. One thing is radio is different because the airwaves are owned by the people, so that FCC can say different certain things, but they are also, they can't shut you down usually for viewpoint. Viewpoint, you can't shut people down on. You have to, if you're using profanities every day or you're doing something like that, I suppose the FCC could do something. But on Twitter, it should be just what the agreement is with Twitter. I mean, they state their rules, and it looks very, very likely that their rules were not what was shutting down, because all my people were on Twitter until the government said, we don't want this on Twitter anymore. And we even have an email in one of our cases that, Alex Berenson, they asked him to be taken down by name, and all the Twitter people said, well, he hasn't violated our rules, and the White House says shut him down, and lo and behold, he's thrown off. But they were saying this for everybody in the country who was not giving their COVID message. Anyone crossing their COVID message, they did not want to be in the new public square, which is social media.
It's not surprising that people in power want to maintain power and want to control information that contradicts them. That doesn't surprise me. What surprises me is the advent of people in the private sector willingly getting in bed with powerful people in government and doing their bidding. That's chilling.
It is chilling, but I have to say I had sort of a prejudice against the social media companies that I thought they were all, like I said in my argument, I was corrected by the judge because I said in cahoots. And Judge Boggs said, do you mean in cahoots? I said, no, I don't mean that. I don't mean that they're acting together, but these guys were threatened. Section 230 allows the protections for the social media companies. If somebody goes on their social platform and says something, they're not responsible for it just because they host a platform. Well, the government keeps threatening to take away their protections. And the White House, I mean, this guy Flaherty, he's constantly threatening them. And Jen Psaki from the president's spokesperson from that podium up there is saying, oh, we're looking at it very closely and we're going to make sure that they do the right thing. Well, what does that mean? How is the government going to make sure you do the right thing? Well, not by doing anything good to you. You know that. So it really does appear, and this is what our suit says, is that these were not independent actions by the social media companies. By and large, these were actions that the government was pressing and forcing upon them.
Boy, I hope you're successful, John Vecchione. This is so important. What's the status of this? I mean, how does this proceed through court?
Okay. So we filed in district court. The district court, in our view, didn't follow the rules of dismissing actions and said, well, it looks like Twitter did this on its own, so I'm going to let it go. Well, that's not how it works. You're supposed to get discovery to find out what the real reason is. So we appealed to the Sixth Circuit, and I had the argument in Cincinnati last week, and you can go to our website, NCLA legal.org, and listen to that argument. But the fact of the matter is that we think that people should be able to sue to show that it's the government doing this. You have a First Amendment right to say these things, and if it isn't because Elon Musk or whoever Zuckerberg at Facebook doesn't like you or didn't like something you say, but it's because the government didn't like something you say, you should be able to stop that. And so we're waiting for an opinion from the Sixth Circuit.
Has Elon Musk been his ownership now taking over of Twitter? And I know he's released the Twitter files. A lot of information has been disclosed through those reports. Has that been helpful legally at all, or can it be helpful legally?
Well, the government says that it's helpful to them because since Elon Musk won't listen to them, that the case is moot and they should shut it down. Now, my people are still being shadow banned because the way that the algorithm works, if you have like a negative in your timeline, you're still being hurt by this, what
Yes.
the government made them do. So I don't know. I'm not enough of a Twitterophile. I've only been on it for 2 or 3 months. And I got thrown off for a little bit, but in any event, but I don't know exactly what the policies are, but I do know that some of my people are at least allowed back on, even if they're shadow banned or having other negative things happen to them. They're at least allowed back on, and you can go to their website, their channel, and listen to them if you can find them.
Yeah, I really do hope that Elon Musk and Twitter, they're like you say, there's still some deep institutional problems with Twitter that have not been rooted out, but I'm hopeful that he continues to expose them, root them out, and he's helpful to cases like yours in what they used to be doing with government before he took over. I hope. It feels in some ways like he's kind of shifted his priorities. I mean, he's a billionaire with other companies, I understand, but
The other thing is releasing the emails and what the company was doing before he took it over has been very helpful, I think. We have another case, Missouri v. Biden, with Missouri and Louisiana, with these same type of allegations, but broader for things like the Hunter's laptop and things like that.
Yes.
And, obviously having the cooperation of a company when you're trying to find out what happened is better than not having the cooperation.
For sure. And then you can assume that it translates to Facebook, too. I mean, you can almost just assume. I mean, I know you don't have proof of it, but you can assume Facebook was up to the same activities.
Well, no, we do now. In this other case, we do. Yes. It was a government-wide effort. And they said that. They said this is a government-wide initiative. Every now and then they have one of these government-wide initiatives. And that means every agency in the government is looking for ways to stop you from doing what you want.
John Vecchione at the New Civil Liberties Alliance, thanks so much for your time today, sir.
You're welcome.